Welcome back to Your Inner Spark. My name is Lana, and on this podcast, I love to talk about all of the beautiful and messy components of this human and healing experience. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that I have been meaning to chat with you guys about for some time now, plant medicine and my journey with it. But before we get started, you guys know the drill by now. I know it's been a few weeks, but I know you haven't forgotten. Let's take a moment wherever you are at, whatever you are doing. Check in with your body. Check in with your senses. I want you to genuinely feel the earth beneath your feet or that chair beneath your butt. If you're driving, genuinely feel that steering wheel in your hands. Take a moment to actually smell whatever it is that you smell around you. What do you hear besides my voice? What do you taste in your mouth right now? Take a moment to actually genuinely check in with all of your senses. And when you're in a spot and you're settled and you're able to do this, let's take a breath together. A deep inhale, fill up your belly. Let it all go. Whatever that chatter is going on in the back of your mind, telling you need to worry about this or that or whatever is going on, let it go. It's you and I in this moment, right here, right now. So let's dig in. This is going to be probably my second actual podcast episode that's not a Spark Notes, where I'm kind of flowing free form. So we're going to see how this rolls off the tongue today. I really just wanted to have an honest and transparent conversation with you all about how plant medicine has really impacted my journey. It's not something that I've talked about really openly in the past because I do think that I have feared some of the stigma surrounding use of plant medicine. And at first I wanted to walk you guys through when I started using plant medicine, what plant medicine I use, and really just walk you through the logistics of it. But then I thought there's no better way for me to give you an insight into what plant medicine does for me than to actually walk you through one of the, I call them downloads that I receive when I'm under the influence. It's really just, it helps me, it's a tool that helps me sit with myself long enough to really be able to self-examine. So I primarily use weed and mushrooms. Those are the plant medicines that I use. I call them plant medicine because they are plants. Mother Nature provided these plants to us, and I believe they are medicine when they are used in the right capacity. Just like any other substance on this earth, they can be overused. They can be abused. But the same thing could be applied to exercise, nutrition. You can overdo anything. You can overconsume or overdo anything to the point where it is no longer serving you. And I think that holds very true when it comes to marijuana and mushrooms. So for me, my use of these is something that I really try and stay mindful of. And it's something I check in with myself on very often. Is this something that's still serving me? Is this still feeling like a tool, or is it starting to feel like some form of escapism? I typically use weed once, maybe twice a week. Over the last few weeks, I'm not going to lie, as I've been depressed, I have been self-medicating with it a little bit more than I normally do, but it's been really allowing me to sit with myself and process rather than get all jumbled up in my head and feel just anxious about things. So as I'm feeling a lot more stable this week, my usage is going to decrease back to probably 1 day a week. I find that if I use weed multiple days in a row, its power lessens. So I don't feel like it's as powerful of a tool if I'm using it back to back. I feel like I need a break in between each usage for it to really show up in the way that I want it to. So I'm going to first kind of dive into weed, and then I'll talk a little bit about mushrooms. And then I do have a podcast guest that I'm actually going to be recording in about 2 hours today. So that episode will come out over the next few weeks, where we're going to dive into a bit more on the mushroom topic. So I started using weed probably in my early 20s. I think the first time I tried it, I was probably 22. And I had such an aversion to weed for so long because I grew up in the DARE era. I grew up with the messaging that weed is a gateway drug. And again, I'm not going to say that overusage of weed could not lead to experimenting with other things. I'm not here to sit here and tell you that weed is just only all good. My experience has been that it has been very beneficial for me. So it took me a really long time to actually start to embrace the usage of weed because I still had so much of this internal dialogue around weed being this really bad thing. And the first time I used weed, my ex-boyfriend actually offered me an edible. And you know what? I thank him for that gift because he did introduce me to weed. So thank you for that. And I remember we were at the beach. It was actually the first time I met his parents, which is quite funny. We weren't dating then. We were just friends. He was actually engaged to somebody else at the time. We were just work friends at that point. And I just remember it like gave me the giggles, and the rest of the night I had just like a perma grin on my face. But at that point I wasn't like enticed with weed. I would use it like every so often, or if we were on vacation or whatnot. I wasn't a regular weed user by any means. Then when I was in my last relationship, then I started dating this man, and then and he used weed probably once or twice a week as well. In that relationship, we would, use weed together. And when I use weed, I just take edibles. For me, like smoking, I don't know if it's because I still have such an aversion to smoking or if it's actually the way that it makes my body feel, but I feel better when I take edibles. So, um, we would take edibles together like maybe once a week. And to me, my weed usage at that point in my life, it was very much a form of escapism. Um, it wasn't anything that I would say that I was abusing, but I was using weed to cope with my depression surrounding the circumstances that I was living. I don't think I ever used weed and really sat with myself and really self examined or anything like that. I literally was just trying to numb out everything that I was experiencing. And when I used weed during that time, because I was really using it to cope, it did create a lot of it put strain on my already wobbly relationship with food for sure, because weed, for some of us, it gives us the munchies, and it was kind of like a binge tool, if that makes any sense. It would definitely amplified my binge eating. So when I decided one day that I needed to heal my relationship with food and my body, I did take a big break from consuming marijuana in any form. I just didn't feel like it was serving me anymore. And I felt like it was making my relationship with food worse because I just felt like I had no control around food when I was using it. So I wanted to preface all of this conversation with that information because I want to be very clear that I'm in no way saying that you should use weed and weed is good for every single person, because that's not the case. I just wanted to be transparent around the fact that a huge part of my healing journey has been the use of plant medicine, but I wanted to give the full spectrum picture. I wanted you to see the full picture that I've moved through these different phases, and my relationship with weed has ebbed and flowed, and it probably will continue to evolve and change. And it's why I'm very, very consistently checking in with myself to make sure it's still serving me, because if at any point I feel like it's doing more harm than good, then I'm going to remove it from my life. So there was definitely a time in my life where I used weed and it wasn't benefiting me, it wasn't helping me, it wasn't enriching my life in any way. But when I became single and started going through this healing journey, I at that point started experimenting with microdosing mushrooms because I have struggled with mental health my entire life, depression and anxiety, and I started being curious about alternative forms of treatment. So I started microdosing mushrooms on a cyclical basis sometime early last spring or late spring probably. And as I started to feel better from the use of medicinal mushrooms, I started toying around with the idea of reintroducing weed. So I started taking edibles again. And I think because I was just in such a different spot in my life, even though as I was trying to find my footing post breakup, I still was in a very messy space for a while. I just think my body and my brain and my subconscious knew they were in a different spot than they previously were. And when I started to use weed at that point in my life, it really opened up things for me. It became this really powerful tool. The best way I can describe what weed does for me is it allows me to like zoom out almost to like a bird's eye view of my life and really self-examine with a lot of perspective. So when you're in the midst of navigating something and you're caught up in all the emotions and your ego and all of that, it's sometimes really hard to see things from a bird's eye view or from a larger scope perspective. And when I sit with weed, when I take weed, it allows me to do that. And it's why I've cultivated so much change in my life in the last year and a half. Every Friday night have a date night with myself, and I would get stoned and do some kind of activity that brought me joy. And I would sit with myself and I would really self-examine, and I would think about, here's where I am right now. Here's where I want to be. What behaviors do I need to change? What am I learning about myself? Really examining my past, just major tool of self-examination. And I felt like it allowed me to relax enough to be able to get out of my head and into my body and to just start to feel things. To me, I have been like a clenched fist my entire life, and weed allowed me to start like opening that fist. I don't know if without that tool, I mean, I believe it would have happened eventually. I just think it would have taken me a lot longer. If you've been following my journey in any capacity over the last year and a half, and you've watched all of these changes taking place, not just in my physical appearance, but in my energy and the way that I show up in this world, weed was a major component to that. Weed was a major component to that. So, in my notes app on my phone, this is where I record a lot of this self-examination. Sometimes I record voice memos. Sometimes I just type into my phone, but I always take notes because I go back and revisit it all of the time. I go back and revisit this information all of the time. And I thought, well, I'm just going to read one to you. And it's going to be pretty vulnerable, but I'm going to read one to you. And I actually recorded this entire episode like 2 weeks ago, but the download that I was sharing with you guys had a lot to do with that relationship that I just ended. So we're redoing this episode, okay? And we're just going to talk about what I was unpacking over this last weekend as I was processing things. So we're just going to go through. I might not share everything. I'm going to be scanning through a little bit, and we're just going to talk about it. Also, some of the voice notes I have from earlier, especially in the summer, oh my gosh. When I sometimes get stoned, I feel as if the information that's coming from, I don't know, higher power, my subconscious, wherever it feels like I open up this portal, right, with the use of weed. And sometimes the information feels like I'm drinking from a fire hose. So that's why I'm always trying to like record so feverishly. And so sometimes voice memos are easier because it's just too much to type. And some of those voice memos are just extremely raw and vulnerable. And you know what's funny is I've always thought maybe someday I'll release some of this raw footage on my podcast so you guys can get insight into my brain. Really just very actively in the healing process. But that's a level of vulnerability. I'm not quite there yet. And maybe I never will get there. But in the meantime, we're going to kind of go through one of these notes and just kind of take a look at things. I always date it. I don't know if you can see here if you're looking on YouTube. I always date it, and then I literally just type away whatever is coming to my brain. So this was from 11/19/2023. I don't know. I think that was a Sunday. Today's Tuesday. And here we go. And I'm just going to read through. It might make no sense to y'all, but it might make sense to some of you. And this is going to be the best way that I can showcase to you what plant medicine does to my brain. Here we go. Become obsessed. I'm done playing it small. I'm done being depressed. I'm done being frozen. I'm done. I release that shit. Time to move forward. Time to fucking build. Build every single thing that I want. Don't shame myself. Simply let that go. And what I'm referring to there is I think I was feeling shame around how much I'd been sitting in my feelings. So I said, simply let that go and grow. Now I have more wisdom. That's all. But I needed to get that wisdom from my own lessons. Today is the last day of sitting in this. So this was Sunday when I was just, I've been at the tail end of like a lot of depression. I start fresh tomorrow. I'm done with grieving. I'm ready to live now. I'm ready to play and to experience. I'm done with the grief. I release it. This is from a Instagram post that I saw. I actually reshared to my story, but I just typed it in here. This time next year, you are going to be crying tears of joy because of how beautiful life got. But claim that. Claim that fucking energy. Rest today to kick this cold. I will wake up tomorrow healed from this cold. I will take action tomorrow. I'm done grieving. I release it. Time for me to let it all go. Yes, it is sad what I've experienced, but I survived. I'm awake now. I'm okay. I made it through. Time to stop focusing on it. Time to start looking ahead. At my future. Looking at the past only serves you to a certain extent. It's good to self-examine for sure. To have awareness around your patterns and tendencies. But at a certain point, you need to start looking forward. And that's where I'm at. It's time for me to look ahead and focus all of my energy on my future and my dreams. There's no reason to be ashamed for still being in this place of self-examination. You wanted to understand yourself. That's great. but you have enough maturity and wisdom now to know that it's best for you if you start looking ahead. Eyes in front of you. I put rest today. You are going to be out of this depression soon because you choose to be, because you choose to start looking ahead and dreaming of all of the possibilities of your life and focusing on what brings you joy. You're done sitting in the grief of the past. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. I put that 3 times. And let it go some more. Focus on opening my heart to what is coming. Heart needs to remain open. I will not allow myself to close it off. I am open to anything and everything that is on its way to me. It's not about what I need to do next. It's all about keeping myself open emotionally. The only things I can have attachment to are my purpose on this planet and my connection to God. My soul's purpose is to help other souls remember their purpose. I put, holy shit, that's it. My soul's purpose is to help other people remember their purpose. I had to heal to figure out what my purpose was. You have to heal your body. That includes your mind and releasing unprocessed emotions. My only attachment is to that purpose and to God, source energy, whatever it is. My higher power. I'm still kind of figuring out what that looks like to me. And I want to just add a little comment on the God terminology. For a long time, I had a big aversion to using the terminology God, because to me, God meant the man in the sky, the way that God was kind of described to me and the religion that I was brought up in. And I've always felt that God is not separate from us. I believe that we are God. I believe we're all a part of God. So for a long time, I would use the terminology the universe. And sometimes I still use the terminology the universe. But when I'm using the terminology God here, to me, God is the source energy, the greater power. It's what we're all a part of. And I'll probably have to do a whole other podcast episode on just how my journey with my spiritual beliefs. But to be crystal clear, and not that it matters, I just feel like it's important for me to explain that to me, when I use the terminology God, it's not Christianity God. And I think God can look different for every single person, and that's okay, as long as you have a belief in something bigger than yourself. I'm not dogging on anybody that still believes in that, that way. Just for me, it's important to explain, because that really mattered to me for a long time. I can manifest any single thing that I want. It's a catalog. Manifesting the life I want. I'm trusting in the abundance of the universe. I'm no longer focusing any energy on my fears. I'm indifferent to the things I don't want. I don't even pay them attention. I don't fear what I don't want. I'm simply indifferent. I can have everything that I want. I can build my dream. I can make $25,000 a month. I can travel full time. I can pay off all of my debt and pay my mom's rent. I can have everything that I want. I can have it all. I just need to ask the universe for it. Open up the catalog. Pick out what you want. You can have it all. Okay, sit with that. This is me just giving myself instructions. Okay, then I go. This is like kind of business stuff, but I'm just going to share this with you guys because this is a part of me trying to build this. Okay, so podcasts are once a week. And then I need content around that podcast all week. Pull bits and pieces from that episode for the content all week. That's how I will drive people to listen. And the more people that listen, the more money I will make. Word of mouth will only get me so far. Okay, I see it. And that's just because I feel like every time I sit with myself, I get more and more clarity on what this dream is for me and how I'm going, the roadmap that's going to get me there, right? I definitely don't know right now all of the entire map and it's, in the full picture. But every time I sit with myself, something comes to me when it comes to my business. And when I talk about my business, I'm talking about my dream. So then I go focus on gratitude and getting into my body. Yoga tomorrow and every day. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be cured of this cold. I can feel it. And honestly, my voice still is a little bit impacted, but I woke up feeling completely fresh because I believed it was going to happen. I said, I'm ready to stand in the light again. If you feel something deep within you calling you to transform or to change, you are in alignment. I feel it so deeply. Enjoy my time left here. Fully. Soak it all in. See your friends often. Walk with mom daily. I put my body is asking for more food lately. Honor that. It has. I haven't been my hunger has been really low for the last few months. And over the last week or so, I feel my body asking for more food. And I've been honoring that. I put lover girl, but queen of detachment. I own that. Working on that. But that's what I own that. I put a ship at harbor is safe, but it's not what ships are built for. Somebody had commented on that on one of my posts about my plans to nomad, and I just love that. I thought it was so beautiful. I said, soak up time at the beach with my family. I'm going there for Thanksgiving tomorrow. And then I put, this is the person that I was dating. His name wasn't able to meet me, and that's okay. Time to move on. Time to move forward. Take what I've learned. Thank him for the lessons. Then I put, Sedona. Can I live in the desert? I'm thinking about going to Sedona after San Diego. Push myself in the lifestyles I'm living. Glamping for a month? I would need internet. I put a cabin of sorts or a trailer. My heart is open. It has remained open. Carry that energy into the week. I put, my life is insanely beautiful. I am fucking back. I'm resilient as fuck. Time to build again. I am so excited for my workday tomorrow. I am not just speaking to Clark County, Washington. My voice is so much louder than that. Stop caring what the people in your direct vicinity think. Be true to you. Your voice is so much louder than Clark County, Washington. And what I mean by that is when I speak, sometimes I feel like I'm speaking to just my community here, and I need to remember my podcast is actually going to be all over, not just in Clark County, Washington. And even though there's a lot of people from my hometown that are listening to this podcast, I need to remember that there are so many more people listening. And sometimes it can be hard because I'm really like, I still have those ego worries where I'm worried about what the people that I went to high school with or the people that I grew up with think or what they're saying about me. Like those feelings still arise, and I just have to release them and remind myself that anybody who has anything negative to say about me trying to pursue something, even if it is very messy, it's really just a reflection of how they feel about themselves and what they're going after. So that is one evening. I have months and months and months of that kind of stuff in this little phone here. I always say that if I die, somebody immediately burn my phone, because you're going to see an insight into my soul that I don't think anybody has ever witnessed before in the notes app of my phone. I once saw a meme on the internet that said, once it's in my notes app, it's above me now. And that's exactly how I feel. It is above me now. So that is just a little bit of an insight into the self-reflection, self-examination I experience when I'm under the influence of marijuana. And it's been life-changing. It's been life-changing because I took that, I made those notes, and I completely changed the way that I showed up yesterday on Monday. And it's all of these constant little reminders about the things that I need to change. When it comes down to like when I decided to shed that fitness girl identity, I would receive this information when I was stoned about like, okay, remove your Apple Watch. Okay, stop posting gym content. That's, change, like all of these changes I've made that have been very difficult were downloads that I received while I was stoned. I would not be the person that I am today without weed. And I wanted to be transparent about that. And I'm not saying you need to use weed to have this experience or go down your own journey. And I think there will be a time and a place that weed no longer serves me. I'm very open to that possibility that could be very soon. But right now it does. And I just, similarly to me talking about like having herpes and all of these things that brought me shame, I'm not going to be ashamed about the fact that I use weed. There's still so much stigma around it. But do you know how many people use weed? Do you know how many successful people use weed? I'm like, why am I not talking about it? Why am I not being authentic in the way that I show up? Because this is a part of my journey and I own it. I really do not care what anybody thinks about me when it comes to the fact that I use weed, but I just realized like it wasn't a part of my story that I had owned fully yet. So that's my purpose of doing this today. It's not to influence you to go use weed or get stoned. It's simply to tell you that that has been a part of my journey, a big part of it. I've additionally used mushrooms as well. When I gave up drinking, it's coming up on a year ago. It's why I never adopted the terminology sober. I'm not sober. I just don't drink alcohol. I still believe that anything that comes from planet Earth, Mother Nature put here for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that, and you can have your own belief systems on that, and I am not going to challenge you on that. Looking back at even the history of weed, it's been used for centuries for medicinal purposes. It was only politics that made it become illegal. And then the messaging that we had our entire childhood that it was a gateway drug, when actually it can really, really help a lot of people. It has so many medicinal purposes. It is a powerful plant that Mother Nature provided to us for a reason. And again, I'm not saying that it can't be abused. There are a lot of healthy things that can be abused. I've lived that. Anything can become an addiction. You need to be the master of your addictions. You need to be the master of what you are, getting into. So then I started experimenting with mushrooms. I started just microdosing. And then occasionally I will do like a bigger mushroom trip, but that's not something that I do as often. And similarly to these downloads that I receive from weed, mushrooms also provides me that same experience, just deep levels of introspection. Mushrooms is something that I prefer to utilize when I'm out in nature. It's something that I just don't do as often. Would like to experiment more with that. But weed is something that it's easy to access. I mean, I live in Washington State. There's a store on every single corner. And like I said, my schedule with that is usually once a week. Usually it's a Friday evening and I bake or I juice or I dance or I just sit with myself and I self-examine and I look back on that week or whatever it is I'm going through. How can I show up different? What do I need to change? And then the key is you actually have to take action, right? Sometimes I take these notes about things I need to take action on and then I don't actually take action and then they come back up. That same theme comes back up. Sometimes it's taken a message coming through multiple times for me to actually take action on that. And that's okay. It allows me to sit with myself. It allows me to unclench. It's changed my life. And then the only other thing I really have to say on plant medicine is I want to continue to explore other substances that Mother Nature has provided for us. I really want to go do ayahuasca here soon. I've been feeling called to go do ayahuasca for probably the last 4 to 5 months. My goal is to do it after the new year before my 29th birthday in March. I believe I'm going to go down to Costa Rica for that. So that will be its own experience. That will be something completely different. But it will be a tool for healing and introspection and self-discovery. And I want to experiment with it all. I mean, I'm nature, right? Why not? So I hope this was useful for you today. If you take away anything from this episode, I really just want it to be that I want to be honest about the fact that I'm kind of a little stoner girly. Truly. And I love that label because the current version of Lana, who is relaxed and soft and in touch with herself and confident and pursuing every single thing that she wants and very self-aware, that is also stoner Lana. Lana who wasn't those things but thought I was above weed. Yeah, I don't miss her. I don't miss tense Lana. I don't miss any of that. So I wanted to just own it. I wanted to be transparent, just as I've been wanting to be transparent about every single other component of my life. This was a big one that I felt like it was important for you guys to just see the full picture. And when I'm talking about making all these changes and softening and downloads and everything in between, I probably wouldn't be having those conversations if I wasn't a little stoner. So that is all for today. This is my first time recording a solo podcast episode in front of a camera, and it felt a little bit weird to just be staring back at myself the entire time. I'm going to see how it feels when I listen back to this to see if it flows in the same way, because it feels different to have the camera in front of my face when I'm by myself. But you got to start somewhere. And Thank you for sitting in this conversation with me today. And I'm totally open to any and all questions that you guys have on this subject. My DMs are open. My email is open. I am here to chat about all of this with you. And especially if it's something that you are feeling curious about, but kind of nervous about, send me a message. And yeah, just like every other episode, let's have a conversation about it. I hope you all have a beautiful day and we will chat soon.